make sure I got both. I think we're good.
Hey.
Here we go.
Here we go. So this is your first ever podcast.
Sure is.
How you feeling?
Not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad, yeah.
Your first one.
I know.
One of many, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I'm glad we're not in some big studio with a load of people around. We're just sat in your old kitchen room.
Yeah. Here we are. Here we are. But there's a reason, a very big reason, as to why we're doing this.
Sure is.
And it's great to be now in this position, knowing it is on the horizon. And this thing that was just an idea going back almost a year, has now come to fruition.
It is.
And, 2 months planning altogether. And we're getting closer and closer to something we've been really wanting to shout about for a good while now.
Yeah, for sure. It feels like it's been a long time coming.
Yeah, it's about that time, and it's a good position to be in. So we're in Wales. We have driven to my parents' place from London yesterday in North Wales.
That was a nice quick drive.
Yeah. 5 whole hours.
Yeah, nearly crashed like 3 times.
Yeah, fucking hell. Yeah, you were scaring me.
Yeah, I know.
You were scaring me.
I've been trying for like a year to try and scare you. Finally, a bit of driving.
I almost had to grab the wheel. Yeah, I'm pretty scared for the way back, actually. I'm joking. Yeah, so we're here. We've had this planned out for not a while, but we've had a thought of, once we get to a certain stage that we hope to get at, we want to go to Wales and we want to do a little bit of filming based around something exciting that we've got coming up. And so pretty much the past 4 months, isn't it? 3-4 months,
yep.
We've dropped the Mongolia series. Massive success, over 9 million views within 33 days.
Yeah, that one well.
We went straight onto the Madagascar series, like in 2 weeks break in between.
Yeah.
The Madagascar series, it didn't perform as well because people knew that it wasn't live, even though I told them that the Mongolia wasn't live. But it was good to just get it out there anyway, because it's a whole different expedition, a whole different ball game, tougher in many ways. So it was great to shine a light on that, because that trip often gets overlooked.
Exactly that. Like, I think the Mongolia one, we've done a lot of content on that in the past. You've obviously done a documentary on it.
Yeah.
Madagascar, as you said, nobody really knows what happened.
Yeah.
So it's great to get that content out there finally. A few longer form YouTube videos. There's some cool clips in that. So yeah, it's good to get that out for people to see.
It's the middle trip, you see, isn't it? It's that middle trip that gets overlooked. Everyone knows about the first one. You do the second one, and the third one was just so big, being Mission Yangtze, that the Madagascar one was just like over. Even though it was harder in many different ways. Yeah.
So yeah, the Mongolia Madagascar series have gone really well. But do you want to talk us through how that came about and why we decided to finally put that out? Because I've been asking you for a while. Let's get some content out there from the past expeditions.
Yeah.
And, you were a bit hesitant at first.
I was very hesitant. You know what? I've always had TV there on the back burner, and TV, when I first started these expeditions, they've obviously taken a couple, but there's a couple that haven't been taken, and that was the Mongolia and Madagascar one. So I filmed this exclusive footage, and it's genuine world first expedition footage. It's hard to find a world first left in the world. Everything has pretty much been done. So people are going to the depths of the ocean or to outer space, because pretty much most things have been done. But I've done 2 things there that had never been done, and that footage just seemed like golden footage. So I was always hesitant I kind of thought, in my eyes, put that out on social media is a gigantic waste, because you're doing it for free, so you're not having a channel picking up, and it's always going to be snippets of footage. It's never going to be the full-blown documentary, which means I'll also be skipping huge chunks of the actual story.
For sure. So
that was my hesitancy. And the third option was, once I've released it, will future TV channels who have been interested in showcasing like a 1 hour documentary on the Mongolia trip, will they now be like, oh well, the exclusivity is it's not there because everyone on your social media and beyond has seen it. However, you've been banging on for a good year now, saying release it. It will do social media good. It'll, people will be able to see what that was like, because I was only 23 doing a first world record, and so I decided to go for it. We put the reels together, and it was a mini series. It was 30 days, a reel every day, no more than 1 minute to 2 minutes long. And seeing the engagement and interaction and watch it build in momentum, because I thought personally, me talking to the camera in a desert, you know, I don't have a team there, completely alone. There's no fancy drone footage. There's no fancy stories along the way as such that have been set up. There's no script that's been written that I've got to read off. It's just me talking about my emotions, my thoughts, my feelings. Who the fuck cares? Is what I initially thought. But seeing the engagement, interaction, seeing people's interest in the series and watching it fucking build, and it was building and building. There were reels that hit millions of views, and then to realise in 30 days it hit 9 million. To put that into context for me and how I see TV, looking at Channel 4, for example, Channel 4, if they air a documentary and it turns out to be well above average, a good documentary, that's a reach of 4 million. 4 million. So with the Mongolia miniseries putting out on just my Instagram alone, that was it. And we doubled what Channel 4 can reach across the nation via TV. It was that shifted my thinking.
For sure.
That's how I absolutely know. And people had been telling me, but I hadn't seen it. And seeing is believing. People had been saying that social media is overtaken and has overtaken for a while now, TV. And I just didn't believe this, because when I got started, it was 10 years ago. You know, 23 when I was doing Mongolia, where TV was big and social media wasn't really a thing. I don't think being a YouTuber was even a thing in 2013. So seeing that was very exciting, and that's kind of made me look at everything so different. I've been led along, you know, the carrot dangling by many different TV channels in my career, saying just hold that footage, film everything you can, capture it all on completion. We'll take it, we'll edit it, and we'll get it on a channel, no problem. And it didn't happen.
And I think as you sort of alluded to there, the landscape's changed, right? I think 10 years ago, exclusivity was key. You'd need that sort of exclusivity, that story that nobody can get anywhere else. Whereas now, people are telling stories all over the place, whether it's on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. Like people are telling the stories anyway. So. And people want to see what's happening and what's going on, and being able to put that out there and showcase what's happening, it builds that excitement, builds that hype. So if you ever make a documentary about that, people already have been teased on it. It almost acts like a modern day trailer for a movie.
Yeah, it does.
Like gets people bought into the story.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's so important for these sort of next generation of expeditions that you look at.
100%. And I'm glad I did it that way. But at the same time, I look back and I think, in terms of engagement and interaction, really sharing these journeys with a wider audience, it's a shame that I didn't do with Mongolia, Madagascar and the Yangtze what we're looking to do with this next expedition, which is actually get things out there lifetime. The process as well, like the lead up to the expedition, because I didn't think, you know, it's one of those where I didn't think people would necessarily care about how do you eat, how you train, how you plan, what's the logistics look like, what do the team members look like. But it's only probably the past couple of years that I've really seen that's a big thing.
Absolutely.
You know, we've got what Mr. Beast counted to 100,000.
You plan to do that?
No. But then seeing that something like that, some people find interesting. It's just like there's something out there for everyone, no matter what you're doing. And so it's just a case of just rolling with it, putting it out there. There's only good things I think that can come from it. And so that's what we plan to do with this next thing that I should have done with the last ones. I didn't, but we learn and we move on.
Absolutely, yeah. So we'll probably get on to what this next expedition is going to be, and we'll start unpacking like where we're going and what we're doing and how we're going to do it. But before then, do you want to sort of talk about the process of how you find a new expedition and what it is you look for and what excites you, and then maybe just expand on that a bit?
Yeah. So with all of the expeditions that I've done in the past, I think the thing that most excites me there's a number of things. One of them is a country that is very little talked about. You know, 2011, when Mongolia came to mind, I was on the tourist track for many years. People had travelled all over the world, and no one had said that they plan on going to Mongolia or have been to Mongolia. So I was curious. So it's a country that's very little travelled. It's a country that's extreme, you know, barely any infrastructure, difficult to get around, but extreme in terms of environment, weather, terrain. And Mongolia, Madagascar and West China again ticked off all of those boxes. No one really goes there. It is extreme. There's not much infrastructure, and part of it is the challenge as well. A big part of that is, can I do what people haven't done or what people have tried and failed to do? And if I study how they went wrong or where they went wrong, can I correct where they went wrong and overcome what they couldn't to achieve what they didn't?
Yeah.
That for me is the pinnacle of, it's the curiosity, it's the passion to go somewhere completely different, and it's the challenge. Do I have what it takes to achieve something that has never been achieved before, to my knowledge? And that, as soon as I get like a country, that's the initial thing. It's that finding the country. Once I've found the country, it's then looking for a challenge I can do within. And there's been many countries that I have come across, but the challenge hasn't been right.
What sort of ones? Talk us through. You said Greenland was one when you were looking at Madagascar, right?
Yeah, that's a good shout. Yeah, Greenland was a trip that I was looking to do. It was out of Greenland or Madagascar. But I had already been to an environment that is totally different to Greenland, but similar story in terms of a mental and physical battle. I'd be on my own. It'd be fairly barren. It wouldn't necessarily be any locals, any wildlife. Very similar background. And it would just be a mental and physical state of talking to the camera. And again, that would be the same with Greenland. However, with Madagascar, I believe it would be less about myself, which would be more interesting to the audience, because now it would be the wildlife, it would be the locals, it would be learning their way of life, learning certain survival techniques from them, and using that on my own journey. And I think for me, I think that it was more interesting for people to follow along. So that's why I parked Greenland. So Greenland is a place I'd love to go to, but the challenge in Greenland wasn't necessarily right. Whereas Madagascar, again, was totally different to the challenge in Mongolia, because it wasn't necessarily the mental, physical challenge, although it was, but it was more about the people, the culture, the traditions, the wildlife, the fauna and flora along the way.
Yeah. So when you found the country and you've decided, right, that's where I'm going, Madagascar, Western China, Mongolia.
Yeah.
How do you then navigate finding a suitable challenge that's going to be A, exciting enough, and B, sort of break into that record setting space, and sort of have a bit of a story as well along the way? I think with Mongolia, we were talking yesterday that it's very much about the headspace and the sort of mental battle of one man walking across Mongolia. You alluded to Madagascar being all about the wildlife and the sort of team effort that's required. Does that come into the consideration when choosing the challenge, and how do you then figure out what that route's going to be, and how do you select that?
That's a very good question. I think I look in that country, what would be the most difficult thing to do in that country?
Of course.
So with Mongolia, to paint a picture of that, there was the option to walk north to south, but that's the shortest route. There's the option to walk maybe 100 miles in the most difficult section, but that's only 100 miles. Or then there's the option to walk the entire length. And then not only that, I could have just done a straight line in the centre, which would have been more pleasant, but instead I wanted to go down south, where the majority of the expedition would be, right through the heart of the Gobi Desert. And so for that, it was the length through the harshest and hottest environment, which instead of being north would be south, which instead of being forest, more likely to come across food, more water. Let's go desert, less likely to come across food and water. The hardest point where it's almost like, it's difficult to explain. Maybe it's that competitive nature within me. I love sports, I love competition, I love martial arts, and so that's all competing with another person. And so if there's no person necessary to compete with, you're then competing with yourself against Mother Nature, doing something that most people are like, you have got a death wish. And it's that originally that really sort of hooks me in, not because of the whole death wish, because it's very good planning. Look at everything that can go wrong, and everything that did go wrong for the previous person, just made sure I could overcome what he couldn't.
And I guess we'll probably get onto this later with the expedition, but planning is such a key part of any of these trips. I guess a lot of the locations you're going to don't have that huge population. They don't have local experts in there all the time. So how do you figure out the right people to talk to when planning these expeditions, and how much do you rely on their sort of local on the ground knowledge to make sure that you're doing the right thing?
Yeah, it's that one's a hard one, because you've got to reach out to as many organisations effectively internationally that have links to the country that you're going to, because you've got to make sure that you bring the right team with the right knowledge on board, because that could be the difference between life or death. You need to be going out there knowing your stuff. And so with Mongolia, I found people that organise expeditions all across Mongolia, all across the heart of Asia, who said that they can help with this. As well as them, I then reached out to organisations like the Royal Geographic Society in the UK initially, to see if there's anyone there who's done a similar challenge. So I was then contacting tour agencies as well in Mongolia. But what I found is, once I realised that they come back and they're kind of like, no, we don't know anyone who's done this, or try this guy, try that person, the teams grow and the teams start doing more research on your behalf whilst you're doing the research too. And if all signs are still pointing to this is going to be a hard challenge, we can't find anyone to really give you much knowledge about it, because we can't find anyone who's done it. What you'll then find is those teams, because they've not found anyone who's done it, they'll start writing it off as not doable, as impossible. And that's the mental game, that's the mental part. I do think that's when the majority of people will listen to the experts and write it off.
Yeah.
If they're saying from the country, they live in the Gobi Desert, they're saying it's not doable, we don't do that, we go by camel, we go as a family unit. It's at that point where people turn back. And that's the hardest bit, because you've got the locals and the knowledge on board of people saying this is what you're going to come across, this is how far you're going to go without water sources, this is how much food you're probably going to need to carry. They're also saying we don't think it's doable, we think the trailer will break, we think that the wells will be dry or locked. And so you've got to really sort of overcome that mental battle to decide that this is something you're gonna go for anyway.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and these expeditions are great. I think getting those sort of local bits of advice is so helpful for sort of fulfilling any of these things. And it's the same with any piece of work, right?
Yeah.
You need experts that know what they're doing to fulfill the bits that they can get stuck into.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you're just there to sort of connect the dots and make sure it actually happens and actually goes through in the way that you want. It's interesting though, because I imagine you get lots of questions and comments about like, when's the next thing, and it's been a few years since Mission Yangtze.
Yeah. 5 years it's been.
Yeah.
Since the Yangtze. Of course, there was the Great War in between that, but that wasn't a record. That was just a TV show.
And again, I think audiences here in the West, and probably people listening to this now, they haven't had a chance to watch the Great Wall show and all the amazing shit you did out there.
Yeah.
Or the Yangtze. Like, I think people will probably be familiar with it from the amount you talked about on podcasts and the buzz, I guess, after you completed that.
Yeah.
But it has been a while since a big expedition.
Yeah.
So why now, and what made you sort of stand up and want to go back out into the wild? Because you could just sit there and do a few talks for the next 6 years and be happy.
Yeah, it's that itch, man. It is that itch. It's sitting down, doing, it's having a plan and a structure and keeping busy with brands and talks and all of this sort of good stuff that's happening on the backbone. But eventually that stuff gets repetitive, it gets boring, and you want to do something new. You want fresh stories, and it's in my DNA. It's in my blood. Like, I think I will always be kind of doing this. And 5 years is a long time. I don't think it would have been 5 years if it wasn't for the Great War. I think I would have done some sort of crazy expedition or adventure in 2022 when I did the Great Wall, if it wasn't for that TV show.
Yeah.
But now, it's been 2 years since the Great Wall, and I never really leave it longer than 2-3 years. It was a year between Mongolia and Madagascar, 2 years between Madagascar and China, 2 years between China and the Great Wall, and now 2 years between the Great Wall and this next project. And so I'm always sure that there's something else coming on the horizon. And genuinely, looking back when I was 25, when I completed Madagascar, after each expedition, I kind of think, my passion is going to be less so moving forward, because I'm scratching that itch. Eventually, it's not going to be itchy. I'm not going to need to scratch it. But if anything, it's the total opposite, which scares me. It scares my family too. I'll finish one thing and I'll want to be going on to the next with more passion and enthusiasm than I had at age 19, setting out for my first sort of travels across the world. And I don't know what that is. I think maybe that's coming across the negatives and positives on an expedition, but the positives shining brighter than the negatives, and me wanting more of this good stuff moving forward. You know, it's maybe that endorphin, maybe that adrenaline rush, and maybe more of the highlight on completion, the fact that I'm able to share it with so many people. And this is kind of like a wildfire that spreads and sort of motivates and inspires, and then people write to me saying what their plan is, saying what they're planning now. And I had a guy who walked across a section of the Gobi Desert, and it randomly popped up on Google Alerts, and he gave credit saying he was inspired by my Mongolia journey. He reached out to me, and I gave him like little words of advice and told him how I built my trailer. Didn't think he would actually do anything with it. He ended up walking like 400 miles across the Gobi Desert.
Jesus.
And he was in the Singapore Times. Like credit, you never know who you're reaching to, and stuff like that kind of motivates you, inspires you to keep going, to do bigger stuff next time. And so it's one of those snowball effects for sure. Like with any career, right? I guess, you know, it's, and so I don't know how long that will last. And right now, you know, yes, I've got a girlfriend, but no kids. And so, you know, maybe that in the future will change things where the expeditions will have to be shorter. Because being away for a year is a big ordeal. So the plan is to chop them down, make them just as exciting, just as extreme and ambitious. Yeah. But that I'm not away for too long, because that's also, you know, relatively unfair. Yeah. Especially on my girlfriend, you know, disappearing for a good year. She's so supportive. She's so all about it. But that's a long time. Yeah, I'm sure is.
So these expeditions require funding and quite a lot of money sometimes for the logistics, for the insurance, for the food, for the time away, and also for you to make this a viable career, I guess. How do you go about securing funding? What's the process like, and how long does that take?
It's the most difficult stage of the whole expedition. It's sort of, although when I start an expedition, I know that there's going to be life-threatening challenges along the way. Being at that start line is the weight off your shoulders, because what you've just gone through to get to this point is just a fucking nightmare. Sponsorship's hard, especially now, 2024. It's extra difficult now. And you would think it would get easier. You know, there's Mongolia, there's Madagascar, there's the Yangtze, there's a multi-million-dollar TV show, there's the next thing, so it's going to be even easier than all the rest. Not the case. There's definitely advantages, but it's hard. The finances are important. The first stage is once you've got the expedition and the challenge, and you know the layout of the procedure, what it looks like, where you're going. You then need to search for brands who share the same ethos, who have the same message that you want to work with, that are putting out on their sort of social media and within their campaigns very similar messages as to what you believe in, that you put out. And then you're tying it in a way that not will benefit you. You want money from the brand, from the partnership, but you've got to put it in a way that how will they benefit. And so for each brand, you've almost got to tailor the ideas, because one brand might want this, another brand, they're not interested in this, they want that. And so it's doing your background research on the brands as well, and then tailoring the funds. You know, there might be a really sort of startup company that you want to work with that you know they don't have much of a budget, and so you take off less of what you can give them and drop the budget. Or there might be a multi-million or billion-dollar company who can definitely, you know, afford this, so you add more to that PDF,
and you just
increase the price.
Yeah, and you give them more stuff off the back of it, I think.
And you leave it open as well. I think that's an important part. You try to find people at the top. That's also important. Go to the top, otherwise you'll be wasting time approaching people at the bottom. You then have to introduce you to the boss, and the boss, and the boss, and the boss. You get the right contact, you have a conversation with him, and then it's either a yes or no. So if it's going to be a no, get to that no as fast as you can. Same with if it's going to be a yes. Yeah. So it's a ball ache, it's difficult, and for me, I've got a big team working behind the scenes, and even this year it's been nails for them. Yeah. And so, yeah, well, I should probably do a separate video actually talking about this, like how to bring sponsors on board. Break it down into lots of different bullet points, because
we could talk for hours on it. I think
Yeah.
branding and marketing is kind of the world I come from, so I know how tight budgets can be, and brands are always looking to maximise the spend they have, and to sort of make sure that they're delivering stuff that resonates with people they want to reach, but also aligns with all the other marketing that they're doing. And when you come to them with ideas that are so wild, so out there, it's an amazing thing to be part of, but it's hard to find a brand that can perfectly align it to them, especially in the next 6 months or so, when you're looking to go out there. So I think finding firstly the brand that fits the expedition right, something that's going to be authentic. Like we could fucking try and find a car partnership or a space industry partnership or an IT partnership. They might have money, but it might not work, right? We want to make sure that any brands that we bring on board is something that's going to work with the expedition. That they're excited to work with you, but also we can showcase to the audience, to the people that follow you, that this is a brand that gets it. They know what they're doing. They know how to sort of bring excitement and bring energy and bring, I guess, the sort of authenticity that is required for these expeditions. And then we're willing to take a risk as well, because there is a chance that these expeditions don't fully finish. You've done 3, however, you could come across something that stops you in the tracks, and then that's again associated with brand, but it's a risk that is potentially going to pay off, because should it be completed, and when it's completed, it's huge, and it rewards those that are brave enough to take that risk. I think.
And there's not many risk takers.
Not at the minute, no.
Right. Have you noticed this year's been extra tricky?
Yeah, I mean, any time that there's a bit of a slowdown, right? The people tighten their budgets and they want to get the most out of the money they spend, and often, unfortunately, that means cheaper, smaller influencers that can do something in their bedroom and post it and get 10,000 views or 20,000 views or 30,000 views. It's very rare that we find brands big enough and brave enough to spend 20, 30, 50,000 pounds on one activation with one big risk, right? So, and I guess the other thing is, like, we have your great audience that is loyal and is interested in what you're doing, but it's no guarantee, right? We saw with Mongolia that absolutely skyrocketed. We got 9 million views. Madagascar had about 1 million to 2 million views. So there's a sort of 7 million view fluctuation
difference there, isn't there?
And brands again may look at that and go, well, I could give you guys money to go and do something, or I could take that money and I could put it in Facebook and Instagram and YouTube ads and get a guaranteed number of views. But again, kind of going back to the world I come from, it's again, you could put out an advert on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and get a guaranteed number of views, but you're not associating yourself with a story and with a narrative and with an expedition as exciting as this. And that's where the sort of bravery comes in from the brand managers, from the guys that run companies, whoever it is we're talking to. Like they need to take that step and be brave enough to back something like this, and hopefully the rewards will come. And finding the right brands to get on board, it doesn't have to be a partnership that ends at the finish line of an expedition. There's loads of things you can do in the tail of that. You've done hundreds of podcast tours. That's again opportunity to talk about these partnerships and brand partnerships and sponsorships, and get yourself involved in the company, become an ambassador for them, go give them talks, go do loads of other stuff that's not just right on the ground in the field. Associating with it. So
it's in the build up and it's in the post event as well, isn't it, that you can do lots of various activities,
exactly,
promotions. So
sponsorships are a huge challenge for anyone and any brand and anyone working in this sort of space at the minute, but it's not impossible. It's kind of a big way that these sort of things get funded and these happen is by people finding generous brands and people willing enough to take a risk, and that's how things get off the ground, and that's how records are broken and things are set.
Exactly.
So it's been a challenge finding sponsorship for this expedition.
It has, and I think the thing is, we've stayed on it. we've stayed on it as the deadline has been creeping up, which makes it difficult to find sponsorship, because they're kind of like, if you're leaving in 2 months, there's no way I can find that kind of money. You know, and so it's been like, it's been a big risk, but we've stayed on it. We've been persistent, and it's paid off.
It sure has. So we have now secured funding to make this trip happen.
Yeah, which is exactly why we're doing that. So this right now is a first. This is the first podcast we've run regarding the latest, which is massive for me, really exciting, because obviously for years now I've been talking about Mongolia, I've been talking about Madagascar, Mission Yangtze. The Great Wall was a little bit of, it was in the background, but I've been sick and tired of recycling this same old shit. Very cool and exciting shit, especially for people who haven't heard about it or come across it. But for me, I want something new. And this is it. We've been working hard whilst we've been drip feeding Mongolia and Madagascar mini-series out there. That's allowed us to put our focus elsewhere and really look at this next project and sponsorship. We got the green light. Only yesterday.
We planned this trip. We were coming here anyway.
We were coming here
training.
Anyway, yeah. So I actually updated Jacob in the car because we've both been working hard at it. And so, yeah, we're in a very excited headspace right now. And it's great to be doing this from a position of knowing it's got the green light.
Yeah. Rather
than talking about it from a position of we got a lot of work still to do. Which we still have.
100%. Yeah.
Still lots of work to be done.
We've got initial funding, but we're still looking for more partnerships to make this happen. And there's still a lot of exciting opportunities that we can do to include people and brands in this expedition.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Which is exciting. So, but we're at the stage now that we can talk about it.
We sure can. So should we move on to what it is we're doing?
Fucking let's do it. Let's fucking do it.
I'll let you take it away, mate.
So, oh my God, where do I start? So this project is... Let me tease it out there.
Do you want to talk about the area? Right.
Let me fucking take my jacket. It's getting hot in here. I'm getting excited. So, it's in a continent I've never been to, but that I've always had a huge fascination of. I've always wanted to go there. It is in an area that has more jungle per square kilometre than any other country on the planet. It's as wild as it gets. It's relatively unexplored. Its interior was mapped in the 1800s, but only a certain part of it. After that, not many expeditions or adventures have been taking place, and the rest of the mapping was done not by man and maps, but by satellite. It's an idea that came to me about a year ago via Instagram, a direct message from a company that are out there. They dropped me the message and I was instantly hooked. It's a source to see first. It's a source to see world first expedition, and it is in the Amazon.
It sure is. Yeah.
In the Amazon, in South America, and in only a couple of months, we will be going to Suriname. Suriname is where my next project is. Suriname is my next world first. Suriname is my 4th world first record.
Boom. And it's going to happen. We've got the funding. We're heading out there. End of. Are we saying dates? Is it?
End of August.
End of August. We've got it set in. And the reason we have to go end of August, and you alluded to the date getting closer and closer.
Yeah.
We're going in the dry season because it's the only time we're able to land. I'm sure you're going to get onto how we get there, but the area is so densely covered in jungle. There is no roads, there's no access roads, there's no even logging roads, there's no boats that can get up the river. We have to get flown in, and the only way we can get there in the dry season is when the rivers are low enough to land. So we'll get onto that a bit in the future, but do you want to talk a bit about how this came about and the guys that reached out?
Yeah, so I was contacted by Matthew Wallace, who works with Unlock Wildlife out in Suriname. And these boys, they're wildlife experts, they're tour guides, and they spend a lot of time in the jungle leading adventures and expeditions all over Suriname. And there's been something that's taken their interest, and they wanted to run that idea by myself. First of all, Suriname, I didn't necessarily even know where Suriname is. So when they reached out, I had to look into this. But that's what excited me most. He named a country that I had heard about, but I couldn't really identify where it was located. And I'm all about that. And when he reached out, he pretty much put it like this: Ash, I know you're into world firsts and crazy, difficult challenges. There's something that we could do in Suriname. It's wild, it's dangerous, it's extreme, it's relatively uncharted. The country here itself is one of the least explored countries on the planet and one of the most sparsely populated, with only 400,000 people living there. It's a source to sea expedition where not many people have ever even gone to this region where the source is located, and it's a kayak trip where we will be travelling from source to sea along the Coppename River, and there's no evidence to suggest that anyone has ever done this. And that was his initial message to me, which just got me super excited straight away.
It hits the points that you were listing off earlier.
It hits all of those. Yeah, and he also said it's so dense that in order to find our way to the source, it will be machete in hand. There are no paths, nobody goes there. He doesn't know anyone who's ever been there, and we will literally be machete in hand, hacking through the bush, trying to identify and locate the source of the Coppename River in Suriname. So the Coppename's not the longest river in Suriname. It's the most central, the most wild, and most remote river in Suriname.
It is.
Which is exciting. He said we might go well over a month without seeing a single human. And he also said that the wildlife out there aren't familiar with humans. They're not hunted by humans. They rarely ever see humans, which means that when they do see you, they don't know to fear us because they never have needed to fear us before. So they actively approach us. And instantly that was like, what? So he was like, he's in a boat and he'll have caiman just coming up to the kayak swimming, or anacondas following the boat right behind, because it's actively curious. It's like, what is this? And so all of this, you're right, was ticking off every single box and then some. And it never had even. I'm all about these wild, remote countries that are never really talked about, but Suriname was not one of them that ever crossed my mind.
100%. You mentioned this to me nearly a year ago.
Yeah.
That's how long we've been.
How did I mention it? Do you remember?
I do. I think I was in Cornwall on holiday.
Yeah.
You dropped me a message, quite a casual message. You're like, hey, can you kayak? I was like, yeah, I can kayak. He's like, great, I might have something for us. And then you left it at that. And I was like, oh, great, okay. Wonder what that means. Is it a 2-day kayaking trip through Scotland, or are we about to canoe the Nile? Like, what are we talking here? And then you came back, you forwarded, I think, Matt's original message and explained like what it is we're going to be doing. And it's sick. I'll be honest, Suriname was a country I'd never heard of before. I've been to South America, I've been to Peru, spent a bit of time there.
Right.
Never been to the Amazon and the Amazon basin. And you mentioned Suriname. Honestly, my first thought, it sounds almost African.
Yeah.
I was like, it's probably some Central African country.
A lot of people think that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yet my geography isn't quite as good as some people's. So I did a quick Google, saw it was in South America, saw how densely covered it is. And if you try and Google Suriname and do some research on it, there's very little published. It's not a very well visited country. It's something like 94% tree covering from the Amazon rainforest.
Yeah.
So again, it gets some tourists to go into the jungle and go on the trips that Matt and Dick, that you might not mention, but is the other guy coming with us.
Yeah.
They do these trips with people all the time, but it's not a high traffic area, and I think that's very exciting to sort of go there and showcase what amazing wilderness is still out there in countries like Suriname.
Yeah, very exciting, and what we found since we started to look further into that. So the challenge becomes more of a challenge, is what we found. Mm-hmm. It keeps expanding, and there's little stories revealed, or little things revealed that we were none the wiser about. One of them was trying to find access to the source. So with the source of the Coppename River, I just thought it's a thing, many people have gone there. However, there is no evidence to suggest that anyone has actually been and mapped and photographed the source of the Coppename River, which I thought that's no big problem. We'll start emailing everyone in the Netherlands, because it's a Dutch country.
It used to be
a Dutch country,
territory. Yeah.
And so we thought there's still going to be ties there. So let's contact Suriname. Let's contact the Netherlands. Let's contact organisations within the UK, and surely we'll find someone who has been to the source. And so we've been on it. My team have been on it. The lads in Suriname have been on it, and we've all reported back, having contacted the highest authorities that we can get access to, and there's again still no evidence that anyone's been to the source. They keep sending information about expeditions that went on there in the 1800s, where that was when they first mapped the interior of Suriname. And I've read through these expeditions. They're wild, they're mad. There was a good number of people, sort of, slaves as well, where they would be heading upstream of various different rivers, going through the jungle, different diseases and different wildlife getting them. But they only got so far and then they turned back.
Yes.
And then after that, it was only really sort of mapped by satellite. So this has become more of a challenge for us. But we also want to try to give back in a way that if we can map this, because we need to know how we can officially map it whereby it's verified, then we can supply these mapping agencies with up-to-date, accurate location points of the source of the Coppename River.
Yep.
But to get there proves difficult. I spoke to the lads a few weeks ago, assuming that there's a landing pad nearby, because we need to find out the exact altitude. Yeah, and they said that there's like a little patch somewhere that we'll be landing on. So that they usually land on when they lead expeditions. So I assumed it was something similar. So I spoke to the lads and they said, no, that's like too far away from where we need to go. It'll take us months to try to then walk through the jungle to get to the source. We're going to try to land closer to the source, but we'll still have to hike upstream by about a week, maybe two, to find the source. And I was like, okay, what does that landing patch look like? And they were like, we don't know. We don't have a landing patch. It's not a thing. No one's done this. No one's gone there. So we are literally going to be in the helicopter, the four of us, looking out of the window, searching for maybe a sandbank that we can land on. And they said if we can't find anywhere to land, the other option, the final option, is to lower the helicopter as close as we can to an open wide section of the water of the river, make sure it's deep water, and we'll physically have to jump from the helicopter into the river. And that's how we start. From there, it's still difficult. We've got all of our food, all of our electronics. We've got the kayak, so we'll be carrying everything on back, which will be fucking heavy. Mm-hmm. All of our lentils, beans, you name it, all on back. And then we'll be starting to search for the source, which will probably take us 7 to 10 days. From that point, there's 2 other world records that I've not mentioned. We've got the fastest to summit Juliana Top, which is the highest mountain in Suriname, and then the fastest team to summit the second highest mountain, Tabletop Mountain. So there's 2 speed records and 1 first, whilst locating the source and being dropped off by helicopter in a place that's just not, at this stage, possible to land to a point that we might need to jump.
Yes. And you alluded to it there.
So it's going to be a mission before we even start, man.
Damn right it is. I mean, the helicopter ride sounds fucking lovely. Flying over the Amazon, looking out the rivers. That's going to be great. The second those doors open, it's game on. And we'll be out there for 6 weeks, 7 weeks, who knows.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lengthy trip.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get it done in 3 weeks. Maybe we'll set some speed records. But, I mean, we don't really know what we're going.
No, we don't. We anticipate 40 to 50 days that it will take. So we'll have to see how we do. Again, it's machete in hand, for the large chunk of the beginning section. There's going to be a lot of portaging of the kayaks as well. We're going to have to pull the kayaks and detour around. I'm sure there's lots of, sort of where the jungle canopy has fallen in some sections crossing the river. And we've got to be hyper aware of where we're stepping. Yep. This place there's insects, there's wildlife, there's everywhere, you name it. Yep. Ants, tarantulas, snakes, jaguar, puma.
Giant otters,
stingray, electric eel, caiman. And this is truly wild, so there's no humans there that have really scared these wildlife off, which is good, which is great. We don't want them to be... We want to go in there and not disturb the wildlife, but also not to accidentally step on any nasties that might catch us by surprise.
Yeah, for sure. We need to think about footwear that we're taking, and the guys out there, they weirdly, strangely seem to walk around in wellies the whole time, but you said that's to stop venomous snake bites.
Yes.
So they've got these thick wellies that obviously cover the bottom of the leg, and there's some crazy videos of these guys handling snakes, and
they're the real deal.
They seem to know what they're doing with it, so fingers crossed they keep us safe from that. So these guys are the real deal. They know what they're doing. You briefly mentioned the records that we're going after. It's important to say that we've got a partner for this, right?
Yeah. We have got Guinness World Records on board. I've worked with them in the past on the Yangtze River trek that I did in 2019, and we've now got Guinness World Records on board, verifying 3 official world records if we're successful. The first one's a first of kayaking the length of the Coppename River from source to sea. The second one is a speed record to the highest mountain, Juliana top. And the third record is another speed record, fastest time to summit the 2 highest mountains in Surinam. And so we've got them on board, which is exciting. So again, that's something else that we've been working hard behind the scenes, where we managed to meet them in person. The both of us went, we managed to capture some footage. It was all very exciting. They're just as excited as it seems.
Sure,
great partners to have on board. And of course with the speed record, because we're the first to do this speed record, a lot of it is just going down as sort of, because we're the first, how can I put this?
Because we're the first to officially record it as a record.
Yes.
The time we set, if we're successful, will be the base mark for future expeditions.
Exactly that.
We aren't the first to climb Juliana Top, although from the research I've been able to do, there's sort of less than 20 people that have registered as climbed it.
Wow.
But they haven't recorded times, at least from what I can see.
So effectively, there's been more people in space than on the peak of Juliana Top.
By a lot. I think it's in the hundreds of people that have been to space now.
Yeah. Wow.
But this area is so remote, so wild. There's 20 or so people that have summited this mountain. So.
And it's not a big mountain. It's what is it? Just over 1,200 meters.
Yeah, it's about the height of Ben Nevis.
Yeah.
So,
but it's jungle and it's remote. Yeah. It's like a hidden gem deep within the Amazon rainforest that people just don't go to because the infrastructure, you can't get there unless you go by helicopter. But then even then, it's a mission because you've then gone hike to the base of the mountain before you start climbing, if you can find a close enough drop-off point.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess moving on, we can go through a list of the descriptions and dangers of things we might find along the way. But do you want to talk a little bit about the crew that we're going to be out there with? So it'll be Matt, Dick, yourself, me.
So there's the 4 members all together doing this. It's myself, it's Jacob. This is your first mission.
Sure is.
We've got Matthew Wallace and we've got Dick Locke, who are part of Unlock Wildlife. They're the guys out on the ground who are really experienced with everything Suriname. In fact, they're so experienced. They've led the BBC, different presenters all over different parts of Suriname. But they're so excited specifically about this expedition because not even they have the answers to what we're about to do. You ask them how many days, they're like, we don't know. You ask them where we're going to land the helicopter, they're like, we don't know. It's genuinely a first for them, and they are the leading tour operators of expeditions and adventures Suriname. So it's their excitement that also excites me. It's seeing them boys being like, this is so wild and mad. With all of their experience, that is like, oh shit. Yeah. So it's going to be So that's the bulk of the team so far. There might be more. We do not know. There
Yeah.
might be TV who wants to send a production company to film this. But as far as it sits right now, there's 4 of us. So that means there's 1 helicopter trip, and there's 4 of us will be dropped there, maybe jumping into the water, and will be left. The helicopter will depart. We'll hear the noise of the helicopter, and gradually that will be replaced with the noises of the jungle, and then that will be it. Our only means of evacuation is just disappearing, gone, and we'll be dropped in the middle of the Amazon.
Yeah.
Which is wild.
Gonna be crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy adventure, but it's super exciting. I think it's definitely something different for me to do, but it's something I've been keen to do for a long time. I've trained hard for a lot of things, and I've got experience climbing mountains in sort of these environments. And not that I don't trust you, but having Matt and Dick out there with on the ground knowledge and experience does reassure me a little bit. So it's going to be tough, it's going to be hard, but we're going into an environment with 3 of the best guys out there, yourself and these 2. We should be in a good position to firstly achieve these goals, but also capture a really good bit of content.
So me and Jacob have been working with each other now for the best part of a year, just over a year, isn't it?
Now.
Working on the social content. He's been really capturing the footage, editing it. You've helped my Insta grow over 100,000 followers. And since then, we've just become close buddies. We've become friends. We work on lots of various different projects with each other now. So when this organically came up, this idea of Suriname, I kind of just threw it straight to Jacob, knowing or wanting him to come out and film. Because on the previous expeditions, I've had to do a lot of self-filming, or I've had production teams sent in, and the production teams have just been evacuated left, right and centre, because you find out they're not fit, they don't run like you run, they don't challenge themselves, they're not on the outdoors summiting mountains. They're very good videographers, but a bulk of that is done in studio, whereas the outdoors is a whole different environment. So with the bond that you and me have built over time, and with what we've seen on social media, how it has increased and has progressed, the thought of having you out there, knowing I'm so comfortable with you behind the camera as well, it was just a no-brainer. And I feel that, yes, you've never done anything like this before, and there will be real difficulties that come with going into sort of unfamiliar territory for yourself, physically and mentally. But it's not a year-long thing. It's 40 to 50 days, but the intensity is ramped up, because going for a week hike in the jungle, in the middle of the jungle, that's pretty cool, pretty extreme. 2 weeks is, bordering ridiculous. A whole month is fucking ludicrous. Anything longer than that, in the jungle, intensity of sleeping out in a hammock every day, hunting, gathering, and just being one with nature amongst such wildlife that are not familiar with humans, that they will not even be scared of us. They'll be approaching us through curiosity. With the diseases, with the insects, I think there's going to be a lot of challenges that you've never come across before. A lot of new ones for me, because the Madagascar jungle and the Burmese jungle is going to be completely different to the Amazon jungle. But I feel we've got a good 2.5 months. I want to sort of train you up to put you in a much better position than all of those others, because we had 10 film crew evacuated. Altogether 10 members on the Yangtze. So it's about now putting you in a place where you're mentally and physically more prepared than you think you are right now. It's about giving yourself the best chance possible as well, because we want you there for the whole trip. Same with it could happen to anyone. Something could happen to me. I could get dengue fever. But again, it's about getting yourself in the best mental and physical state, so that you can tackle everything that's coming your way, because it will be a lot. There's more than we can fathom right now, for sure.
For sure. Happen. But there's some things we can't control, and it's about controlling the controllables and making sure that the end of August, when we're heading out there, we're in the best possible state to complete this expedition and to be able to showcase it in the best way possible. And that's, I guess, my role on the trip, is to capture and document and produce something off the back of this, and that's something that's very exciting. The stuff you mentioned about training and how we're going to go through this sort of training block now to get ready for it. What does that look like, and how do you sort of decide whether you focus on endurance and power, or whether it's about muscle mass and bulk? Like what's that look like, and how is the best way to train for something like this?
Best way to train for something like this is by ticking off and training all components possible. You want your speed, your strength, your flexibility, your coordination, you want your reaction time, you want your balance, you want your strength, power. Everything's going to need to be ticked off. So the way that I train, each session isn't sort of split bro sessions. It's like every muscle part, because when we're out there, it's not going to be a case of, okay, that's enough paddling now. That's probably equivalent of 5 sets of this many reps. You'll keep going. You might not sleep well one night, or 2 nights, or 3 nights. You might not sleep at all, and you'll still have to wake up the next day and put in the work. So it's about making your body as uncomfortable as possible in the training and pushing it to exertion in sleep deprivation to a certain extent, a little bit of starvation, a little bit of dehydration, so your body is triggered and is familiar with all of these little uncomfortable things. Yeah. That when you're out there, it doesn't come as a shock. You do not want anything to come by surprise or by shock when you're in the worst possible environment to suffer with shock or surprise. Because that's when you start doing reckless things, and that's where the nasty things can happen. Especially because you're going to need to be aware. I think a lot of people think, oh yeah, but it's paddling or it's hiking, or But when you're paddling and you're getting out of the boat, or even when you're sleeping at night and you get out to go for a wee in the jungle, it could be 10 meters away. You've got to be so aware with where you're stepping and standing that if you're not, you make a mistake, you will end up paying.
100%.
Even when you're sleep deprived, even when you're it's 3 o'clock in the morning, you're waking up, you just need to empty your bladder. So it's just it's about building up that awareness as much as possible, and making it more comfortable for yourself when you're out there. A lot of people say you need to put on fat for adventures so that you've got resources to burn. They are right to a certain extent, but the way I've learned through experience is if I put on fat and then I'm trekking in the cold mountains, yes, it's cold, but now I'm suffering more because I've put on fat. I'm not as physically fit, so then I start to sweat, and then that sweat goes cold onto my skin, or I'm suffering, and I'm for the first 2 weeks it's just miserable because I'm not as fit. So what I do is I try to put on muscle mass and a little bit of fat, but never at the cost of my fitness. Yeah, I need myself to be as comfortable as possible when I'm out there, because the more uncomfortable you are out there, you're just going to be in for a miserable and grim time, and mentally that starts to get to you. And then when you start thinking, I don't want to do this, and you're only 5 days in, it's fucking game over. Yeah, and a lot of people do that. A lot of people put on fat, they'll then go to the Himalayas, they then struggle and they bounce. Yeah, and I'm like, oh, what happened? It's all I don't know. You find out they didn't train. Yeah. They didn't train physically, which mean they didn't really train mentally. Yeah. And so they just gave themselves a hard time for it's like strapping weights and then trying to swim. Weights to your ankle, and it was like, why would you do that? Release it, make it comfortable for yourself. Yeah. But so yeah, that's the way I kind of learnt it. So with you, we want to be really sort of pushing you and hurting you. Mm-hmm. And mentally, physically, when you feel like you're done, you're not done. We need to keep you going. Yeah. Rest time, minimal rest time. Here, I'll give you an example of how we're training here, and we want to kind of replicate that in London, probably through the Muay Thai. There's the tractor Thai there. There's lots of unorthodox ways that we can train around that area as well. That'd be good really to do. Push you. That'd be really good to do, because I don't consider myself an athlete, but I'm fit enough. I do a lot of running. Yeah, you do. I do a lot of lifting most days. And a lot of climbing as well. A lot of climbing, yeah. So I've got the base skills, I think, for lengthy endurance things. I've done multiple ultras, and I can lift enough, and I can climb and hold my weight, and I've got good grip strength, and I can lug big packs up mountains. But and you're aware in the outdoors. Yeah. You're situationally aware of your surrounding, which is like you would think is a given, but unfortunately it's not. There's a lot of unaware people in crazy dangerous environments that are just like you're kind of thinking you don't belong here, you need to fucking leave.
Yeah.
So yeah, you've already got all of that already, and I wouldn't have asked you to join if you hadn't. It's now about sharpening that tool.
100%. Yeah. Getting up and go for a wee in the middle of the night is a fun one. I've mastered the art of peeing out of a tent.
Yeah.
I can lie on my side and I get a good stream about 3 or 4 foot away. So I'm just going to do that. I'm not getting risky out of hammock.
Right.
If we're within 3 or 4 foot though, you might just get woken up in the night like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, what's this?
I'm getting pissed off. So look out for that.
Pop in your kayak if you do that. See you, mate.
Yeah, great. So yeah, this has been a really good chat. I think we're now going to get stuck into some training.
Yeah.
We're going to do some more detailed map work, all of which will be coming out soon. But
Yes.
This is a really good way to hopefully update people on what you've been up to, where your head's been at in the last couple of months, why we've been putting out older content.
Yeah.
And now what we can expect coming up and where we're going to be going.
Yeah. And exactly how we're going to do this. So the differences between this trip and all of the previous trips. The previous trip, because it was for TV, I didn't share much about it, even in the build-up. And because I didn't think people cared about the diet, the nutrition, the logistics, the mapping, how you plan a trip, how you get sponsorship, I just never did it. Whereas now I'm going to be dropping, hopefully, a reel a day, doing a countdown to the expedition to show how you can best prepare yourself to attempt and achieve a world record. So this is going to be totally different for myself, and I really hope that the audience fucking dig it.
Yeah.
You know, because I just really want to be putting it out there as much as I possibly can.
For sure.
You and me, you know, we're going to be grinding away, getting as much as we can out there for the build up for when we actually go to Suriname, in which we'll then be off the radar, but we'll still be dropping tweets or texts, or we'll try to find a way that we can update.
We'll be able to
there.
get some updates out to the audience, and I think what we're going to create off the back of this is going to be very exciting, both content wise but also future plans for where this is going to go. And this doesn't end when we reach the finish line.
No.
In Suriname we've got some really exciting plans for next year, and potentially ways that people listening can get involved with as well.
Absolutely. No, we are looking to. I led an expedition in Madagascar in 2017, and it was a booming success. Since then, I don't know why. I stopped, but I want to pick back up on that. You know, I don't know if we want to talk about Uncharted right now, but effectively we want to lead and run expeditions back to these countries that I've set world first records, but with people. I want to go out there with the audience where you guys can join me, and we go to Mongolia, we go to West China, we go to Madagascar, and hopefully we make another Suriname trip happen as well. 100%. I think that would be huge. And
I think if you've made it to this point in the video or in the podcast, wherever you're listening to this training starts now, and we're going to be getting stuck back in London. In some really tough training sessions, but also some bigger open training sessions, and I think it'd be great to invite some of the guys listening down to some of these. I don't think we're going to charge for them. It'll just be an open park. No, absolutely. So anyone that's listening, I think it's an open invite. Get stuck in. Just open it up. I've never done anything like that, so I would love to see that result. And I think if there's people willing and up for joining, then it's something that I'll do ongoing. 100%. And then we'll have to run one last training session before we fly to Suriname. That's it. Where we get all of us, go for a big run or training session, and then that's it. So that would be cool. And I'm certainly looking to get stuck into more things like this, where I open it up for people to get involved. Yeah, it'd be amazing. So keep an eye on Ash's stories for that moving forward. Make that happy. But great, I think this has been a really good discussion. We've got a few things off our chest of where things have been. Man, it's so good to just talk about it. It's so good to start talking about it now that we know it's happening. It's been, because I wanted to share the whole process from the very beginning, but there's also big risks involved with that, because there's no guarantee that you can get the expedition a green light. Even if you do hold records and you think it's going to be easier, there's not that guarantee. And have you seen, it's been a long process.
But we've got the green light. It's about time, and we can now start getting more out there, and it just feels good to talk about it. And and the training starts literally today. We are
we're going to be hitting the gym.
Literally going out to train. Well, more you than me, and ready to take to London, and we then continue it there.
Sure do. Yeah.
But there's lots we haven't discussed. There's lots more happening that we will, not because we're not allowed to discuss it, but because we are. It's just there's so much happening that it's difficult of what to include, what to talk about right now, what not to talk about. So we will. There's lots more new stuff coming.
Sure is.
And you've only heard a little on what we're up against in Suriname.
Yeah. I think we're going to do a full breakdown on the mapping and some more stuff on the training and all of that. So keep an eye out for that. But in the meantime, I think just keep up to date with Ash's stories and get involved with anything that comes up. And we're going to be busy working in the background to make this stuff happen.
Very, very excited.